We just did our first mock draft, and we ended up grabbing J.C. Latham with the first pick in that. It was just kind of how it fell. You'll have to sign up to read the rest of that. We do all 7 rounds. There's a trade up for a guy. It's our first go at it, and we'll have one of those every Thursday leading up to the draft, so we got 2 more to go. But we just did a Would You Rather on the last show. Let's do another one just kind of geared towards the offensive tackle situation. Look, we took Latham because Joe Alt and Fashanu were already gone. I think we like both those guys.
I think we would both take those two, run up to the podium.
Yeah, we like both those guys a little bit better. But, would they wait until 45? What is kind of the thing that we would prefer the most out of these scenarios? Take Latham at 14, trade down 10 spots and get Oklahoma offensive tackle Tyler Guyton plus an extra second rounder, or take a defensive end or pass catcher at 14 and grab Patrick Paul in round 2. He went to Houston.
All right, so let's take them one at a time. Latham at 14 is what we did, but we did that obviously not knowing if those other guys would be around, not knowing if we can't. We did project a trade up later, but you don't know for sure if you're going to find the right trade partner. I think this scenario is more if you knew for sure these people would be waiting for you, what would be the best value? And I'm a little torn here. I like Latham. He's my 3rd favorite offensive tackle. He's been a right tackle. He could move to left tackle, but he's been a right tackle. He's a big, powerful guy, 342 pounds. I think there's still some projection with him. I don't think he'll be a finished product right when he enters the NFL, and he's probably going to be – I don't know if they'd start him at right tackle before moving him to left tackle even in a second year or whatever. I like it, but does he separate himself from the guys like Tyler Guyton, possibly Fautanu, some other guys that you could get if you traded down? I have a feeling I'm going to go with the second one, but how sold are you on Latham?
I'm not. I mean, I think he's good. I think there's some stuff that could be a little bit better, but I do think that he is somebody that you draft and you think he's going to be a day one starter, and I don't think you believe that with some of the other guys, Fontenot and them. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. It could be, but I don't know that he's guaranteed. They might need a little bit more development. I think he does start right away, so I like him better than those options. So if we're going to go to the next one, trading down, getting Guyton and an extra second rounder, it depends how much of an answer you need on that. And I guess, what are you getting with that second rounder? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. So I think for me, between those two, I think I go Latham at 14. The extra second rounder sounds great, and it's an extra swing of the bat, but I just don't know if it's worth the downgrade just for that, because I don't know. I think I like option 3 the best out of 2 and 3, and I like 1 better than 2 and 3.
I think 2 might be my favorite scenario, which is trade down 10 spots, get Tyler Guyton plus an extra second rounder. Now, is anyone offering that trade? I don't know for sure. That's what the trade charts say. Would Guyton be there if you traded down 10 spots? I don't know for sure. This is my favorite thing if I'm running the Saints. I like Guyton a lot. I mean, I think he's fluid, he's fast. I see a future left tackle who could be really good there. This is not my favorite as the Saints analyst to us to come on these shows and hear the fan fallout, because Guyton's a little bit of a projection. He only started for about 1 full season plus at Oklahoma. I mean, I heard some analysts talking about how he might be a guy that sits the first year and starts the second year. I don't think that would be the case in New Orleans, obviously, but depending on what team he goes to. And I don't think anyone wants a projection here. So for that reason, I do love the idea of taking a sure thing. So maybe you just do it at 14. But I think Guyton could end up being just as good as anyone outside of Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu. And the idea of getting Guyton plus 2 second-round picks, I think that's my favorite one of these scenarios.
I like Guyton more than Fontenot, Fuaga, Mims, all them guys. I think that I would put him in that
Mims
that
even more of a projection.
Yeah,
I think.
I like him more than all the guys in that range. I am not. They're gonna end up drafting him, and I'm gonna be saying all this stuff, but I'm not sold on Fontenot. I'm not. He's not. I just don't think he's the guy that everybody says he is. I think he's more of an inside guy than an outside guy, and I don't think he's a left tackle. I just don't see it. So I'm not sold on him at all. I would be okay with Guyton. And I think you're right. I think he does have a chance to be better than a lot of those guys. I don't know if you trade down 10 spots if you get him, though, either. I don't know if that's really the range. I know he's kind of right there for a lot of people as fourth. I think a lot of people have him higher than Fontenot.
Right, it'd be risky. And again, the premise of this is somehow you can see the future and know you get him. The risk of trading down is there could be a run on tackles from like 18 to 22, and all of a sudden you missed out on all of them. Yeah, for sure.
I just kind of like the idea of getting like someone that I know for sure is like a difference maker. So that's why I got 3 ahead of 2, taking a D-end or pass catcher at 14, and then Patrick Paul in the second. I kind of like just cutting out any guesswork, and it's kind of like at 14, I feel like I'm getting a outstanding tackle or an outstanding pass catcher or an outstanding defensive end if he's worthy of that 14th pick. So I kind of like all those right there. So if you're telling me, and I don't think you get the DN that's worthy of the 14th pick, but I think you can get a receiver that's worthy of pick 14, someone that's like 6'3", runs 4.3. Like those guys are going to be there at 14. And then I don't know that Patrick Paul's like a surefire thing as a OT, but I think you're kind of, I like the idea of getting the OT at 14, the pass catcher at 45, or the pass catcher at 14 and the OT at 45, because at least one of them, I feel like you're getting a star.
Well, Paul's really interesting to me because this topic was inspired by the mock draft we did. We got to 45, and Patrick Paul was still there. Now, when you make the pick at 14, you don't know that's going to be the case. But then we're sitting there in the draft room and being like, oh, shoot, if we had known Patrick Paul was going to be here at 45, should we have gone a different direction than J.C. Latham in round 1? And I still don't know the answer to that question. Patrick Paul is obviously not a sure thing. I mean, getting a guy from Houston after what just happened with Peyton Turner is going to put bad thoughts in people's heads. After they just took Trevor Penning and they said, can he make the leap from Northern Iowa into the big leagues? After the level of competition he faced, that'll put a negative thought into people's heads. Patrick Paul, I think, is an actual left tackle, though. I don't think that's a projection. And he's experienced. He has, I think, 44 career starts. And I think, there's a scenario where he is as good as 5 or 6 guys that get drafted in round 1. He certainly has the traits. He's a really big dude. His brother is Chris Paul, not that Chris Paul, but Chris Paul that starts in the NFL for the Washington Commanders. Look, if you go ahead, especially if you get somebody that we talked about the other day, like the dream scenario where Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers or Dallas Turner falls to you in round 1 and then end up with Patrick Paul in round 2, that might be the absolute best case scenario. For me, though, out of these 3, I think I'm trade down, get a total of 3 players, and get someone like Guyton in the mid-20s. That's probably the least realistic of the 3 when we're talking Saints, though.
Who was the Texas Tech tight end that busted big time? Jason Morrow. Like, imagine being like, well, we can't take Mahomes because Jace wasn't a good player. Like, that's the stupidest thing to me. It's just like they can't draft a linebacker because the last linebacker busted. Like, that's not a reason for me to stay away from somebody at all. But you're right. That would immediately be the reaction. Houston.
How dare you?
Look, I don't think he's going to be a great player. And look, I think there's a chance that Latham could end up being the second best tackle in this draft. Like, any one of those top 3, I think, are great. Are great prospects from there. I just think they have to get one. They have to get an answer. And really, I think the willingness to be able to wait there until 45 is kind of it's what's behind the curtain right now. Like, do you have a veteran guy just kind of waiting on ice to sign him after the draft? That's kind of the question there. If you don't, I don't know that you have the luxury of even considering anything else but best available tackle at 14. I think you kind of have to do it. I would be shocked, though. Like, we've seen their pro personnel department work. Like, they definitely they got to have a plan to
and
kind
look,
of address
it is not out of the question. If you take someone else at 14 and you get to 45 and Patrick Paul's not there, there are a lot of good guards there. And if you draft a guard at 45, it still can help put the puzzle together. I mean, maybe you get Mekhi Becton, maybe you get Andrus Peat back in here, maybe you move James Hurst or I'm drawing a blank on the guy they just signed, Oli Udoh. And you've got question marks at tackles, but you've got a stud at guard. So, at 45, there will be options.
How do you feel about that, though? Like, the trade back? Like, I think one of my biggest pieces with this team right now is that they don't have enough, young stars, building blocks. And I feel like if you're trading back.
You want a star.
Yeah, I want somebody that is just kind of like, here's an anchor point for the team moving forward. And I feel like you got a better chance of that at 14. But again, you can find that guy in the second round. I mean, Mike Thomas was a second-round pick. Marcus Williams was a second-round pick.
I am not a trade down disciple like a lot of people are. And yes, it makes sense since it's such a crapshoot. More lottery tickets you can buy. But I feel that way this year, like more than ever before with this team. I would love to have 3 top 50 to top 60 picks. I don't just like picks. I don't want 4 third-rounders. I don't want 4 fourth-rounders or whatever. But if you're talking about getting and we just did this, Kevin and I, on the members-only pod, we went and we said what was their best pick in every round. What they've done in the second round over the last really over this entire century, but they're really nailing the second round too. Those are guys we feel good about being on this team right now, or some of the second rounders that they've had in recent years. So if you're truly adding a second rounder and you're giving me the 24th pick, the 45th pick, and the 50th pick in this year's draft, I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just kind of you got to hit on them. I wouldn't hate if they trade down. I'm just kind of like you get what you pay for kind of thing, and it's like it just feels like you got a better shot at 14, but you might not. Like it's deep enough at the 2 positions that they kind of have major needs at too. That there is merit to the thinking. I just in the would you rather, I just kind of like the give me the best player at 14.
If it's Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu, I don't move down. I'm so sold on those guys. This to me is the we didn't get the sure thing. Like to me, Latham is almost like the 14th player on my board at 14. Like, what do you do if that happens? If a top 6 player on my board is available at 14, then I don't trade down.
I take Latham. I think there's a little bit of a dip after that. I think if those 3 are gone though, you don't. And if they are gone, then maybe you do jet back, and maybe
it really depends on their board, and that's what.
Yeah, maybe you do. I don't know if he makes it to 22, but like maybe then you do like a Brian Thomas and Patrick Paul combo and get another tackle in the second round. Maybe that's it.
That's the one thing I don't think people appreciate enough in these conversations is they look at analyst boards. They even listen to what we're saying. But if you are a team like the Saints and you have somebody in this like elite bubble, like we think there's 8 true like superstars in this draft, and one of them is left when you're there at 14, then you pounce. You don't think about trading down. If you're like, oh, well, we kind of have all these guys from like 12 to 22 with a similar grade, then you trade down. If they see like a top 8 guy on their board, then I don't hold it against them for staying put.
I will say I'm talking myself into it, like taking a pass catcher and getting 2 tackles. If you aren't getting one of the top tackles at 14, it feels a little bit better if you take the pass catcher at 22 than it does at 14, and then you get the 2 tackles in the second round or something like that. But I want the best player. I want the talent. I want the stars. I kind of just feel like they're lacking that a little bit.